welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
That was very broadcaster voice for you.
That was very
Hello.
good. Hello.
Welcome back to the nightly news.
Hello. Welcome back after 3 weeks of absence.
Oh my God. Every time seems like every time we fire up the recording stuff, we're going, oh, we just had a little hiatus.
Yeah.
We're back again.
We're having a lot of hiatuses.
It's the holiday season, guys. You got to bear with us.
It is.
But if you're
families and it's hectic.
That being said, if you're a Patreon member, you don't miss us that much because last week you got a two and a half hour episode
That's
on
right.
the Ted Bundy.
The Ted Bundy. That's
Theodore
right.
Ted Bundy himself.
Yeah, if nothing else, we'll definitely be consistent with the Patreon episodes.
We have to do one a month just because people are paying us money to do that.
Right.
Now, you freebies, you freeloaders out there that are listening to this right now, you guys get an episode when we give it to you, all right?
That's right.
Deal with it.
Hey, we also do giveaways at Patreon, too.
That's true, yeah. Somebody just won a clock. Somebody just won a clock, and it was a lot more costly than I expected.
Well,
they lived in Canada, damn it. We had to pick somebody that lives in Canada.
All right.
Shipping was like $90.
It's just our luck.
Right.
But, hey. They're a patron.
Hey, we're a man of our word, so
that's right.
We said any Patreon, we picked a random Patreon member, and of course they're damn Canadian.
That's right. But that's fine. We still love you.
Should have given it to a geese and just had him fly it up there.
We still love you, Jen.
To a geese. I just said giving it to a geese.
Giving it to a geese. Well, you might need a flock of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them might not be able to hold it. Wait, geese don't even have talons, man. You
Isn't
have to
it
strap it to its back.
Isn't a group of geese a gaggle of geese, not a flock?
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, wow. A gaggle.
This guy that we're going to...
you know what a group of flamingos is real quick?
What?
Flamboyants. No
Really?
joke. No joke, yeah.
Huh.
Some birds get their own group names.
I like the name gaggle, though, or the word gaggle. He's like this guy that we're going to focus on today. I feel like you could... Some of the prolific serial, you could almost put there, if they kill women, it's like a gaggle of... I don't know why it'd only be women.
A gaggle of women? Is that what you're trying to say right now?
This dude killed a cat. He killed a gaggle of women.
He killed a flamboyance of women. It was ridiculous.
There you go. That's... I don't know where we're going with
I don't know
at this point at all.
But we're doing the I-5 killer, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. It's we're recording on a Sunday, which we normally do Fridays.
Right.
But it's kind of it's perfect because it's football Sunday right now. This guy played for the Packers.
Well, almost.
For a very short time.
Yeah. He got drafted, right?
Yeah.
He was a wannabe Packer.
Our first professional sports athlete killer, serial killer.
Yeah.
So, should be interesting.
It should be.
Let's get into it.
All right.
Brett Favre will be your point man.
And wide receiver, Randy Woodfield.
It's not a huge surprise, but it's gratifying.
As always, should you or any member of your Packer force fail, the Cheeseheads will disavow all knowledge of your actions.
He's the most infamous Packer hopeful of all time.
Seemingly personable and talented athlete hit a grotesque dark side.
You may remember the name. He's called the I-5 killer.
I-5 killer.
Randy hasn't had quite as much publicity as some of the other serial killers.
He was pretty normal, pretty likable, likable guy.
He was a hell of an athlete. I was surprised he got caught. He could run and jump, and he was as good as they come.
He may turn out to be one of the most prolific serial killers that we have ever known. He's responsible for probably more murders than we realize.
And right there with John Wayne Gacy and a couple other ones, the son of Sam was Randy Woodfield.
Get a shiver?
Oh, yeah.
I think we all got a shiver.
Yeah.
It's not a huge surprise, but it's gratifying.
All right, so Randy Woodfield.
That's right. That's how he was
Our
born.
second Randy serial killer as well.
Yeah.
And goes along with the theme of two first names. No, not Woodfield, but Randall Brent.
Randall Brent, yeah, that's two first names. Right. But aren't most middle names, couldn't they be first names?
I guess.
Yeah. It's not really that crazy unless you got three first names.
I don't know. What's your middle name?
Edward.
Yeah, you're a serial killer, bro.
Yeah. What's your middle name?
Clark.
That's the first name. Fucking Clark Kent, bro.
I guess.
That's a first name.
Well, you know what? Because you know why? Because middle names, a lot of times it's like your grandfather's name or something.
Yeah,
you throw
that's
that in
what mine
there.
is. Yeah,
mine's the same thing.
Yep.
So. Yeah, I guess
there you
we're
go.
not all serial killers.
That's why all our middle names sound like 2 generations too old for what you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Edward.
Right.
Edward and Clark here.
My wife's middle name is Gertrude. No, it's not. I'm just kidding. Those old names are so weird, though.
Yeah,
It's like it just feels old.
Yeah. Patsy.
Right.
Something like that. I don't know. But who's he share a birthday with? These are kind of cool people.
Kit Harington, famous country singer, is what I thought, but apparently it's Jon Snow.
It's Jon Snow, man. There's tons of lady listeners right now throwing things at you.
Jon Snow's so much cooler than this guy.
Yeah. So is Jared Leto.
No, he's not.
No?
I'll take Randy Woodfield over Jared Leto.
Okay.
Cannot stand Jared Leto.
You will take a serial killer who
yes, I will.
raped, molested.
Did you see Suicide Squad with his terrible job freaking being the Joker?
I did.
Randall Woodfield's a better American.
Well, he's a better musician, though, than Randy Woodfield.
Yeah, I'll give him that. 30 Seconds to Mars. He's got a good singing voice and whatever, but
yeah, okay.
As an actor,
he does. He goes above and beyond, though, to be an actor. He really wants to be an actor.
Yeah, that's what I don't like.
Oh, you don't
tries
like
too hard. He's trying to be. Yeah, he's trying to be.
What's that called? Method acting?
Yeah, it's
too far.
But he's not that guy. He thinks he's Daniel Day-Lewis, but he's not.
He thinks he's Shia LaBeouf or something.
Right? He's like sending rats to people. Like when he was trying to like act like the Joker, but it was failing.
Right. Some people can take it too far. I heard Shia LaBeouf got booted from a movie because he was supposed to. His character was supposed to intimidate Alec Baldwin's character, and he was trying to do that on and off set. Like he was following him home after recordings and shit, like
him.
being all creepy. And Alec Baldwin was like, "Get this guy out of here! Get this fucker out of here!"
Yeah, but you know what? Shia LaBeouf's actually legitimately crazy. Whereas Jared Leto's trying to act crazy and he's not. Yeah, Shia LaBeouf's just nuts. And pretty good actor, too. I
guess so.
Have you seen Fury? He's phenomenal in that movie.
I have not.
Oh, man. You haven't seen Fury?
No.
This is turning into a movie podcast.
It is. Hey, wait. You didn't even say when Randall Woodfield was born.
Oh, December 26th, the day after Christmas.
That's right.
1950. It's also, perfect. Recording on Football
Christmas.
Sunday. Christmas is coming.
Right.
His birthday's coming. He's still alive. Spoiler alert.
Oh, man.
Still kicking. He's going to celebrate another Christmas this year. The son of a bitch.
He was nothing.
Yeah. He was born in Salem, Oregon, to a middle-class family. Very normal family.
Yeah, he had a great upbringing.
Yeah.
What it looked like.
Yeah. It was the same old thing, though. Like, he had sisters and a doting mother, and it seemed like that was his thing. Like, that was his problem. Like, he had a problem with it that, I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
The sister thing just seemed like that stood out.
I think he felt like the girls got a little more attention. They were a little more favorited, maybe because...
They became more successful than him.
Was he a middle child?
Yes.
He was a middle child. Mm-hmm. That worries me. My son is a middle child.
Surrounded by two girls?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. I spend a lot of time with them. Yes.
Give him special attention.
But see, Randy's dad wasn't... I mean, he was a very good provider from what I hear, but he was like high up in like a telephone company, right?
Which is ironic by the way that Randy ends up getting caught.
Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah. He was like high up in telecom. He was a supervisor or a boss or something.
So I'm sure he didn't
phone company.
spend a whole lot of time at home, maybe worked long hours.
Yeah.
Probably on salary, but apparently made good money.
But it was the same old gag where the sisters were like dressing up Randy when he was younger and like I think they put makeup on him and stuff like that. And and it was...
Emasculating him. He just had enough, man.
That might have been, he was emasculated at a young age.
Right. Not even football could save him.
And then as they got older, his sisters became real successful. One became a doctor, the other became a lawyer, I think.
Oh, shit.
The stereotypical ways to become successful.
Standards are high.
Right? This family could have been the all-American badass family had Randy Woodfield not turned out to be such a damn creep.
Right.
Because, I mean, he ends up getting, like we talked about, we alluded to, became a professional football player for a short time.
Right.
Had he not been just whipping his junk out everywhere in the streets and,
gosh.
abducting people and all that
Did
stuff.
you imagine their Christmas parties?
Right.
His family would be legit. His dad probably owns fucking telecom by now.
Yeah.
And then,
well, our son here, he plays for the Packers.
Right.
One daughter's a doctor, the other daughter's a lawyer. Like,
yeah.
What more could you ask for as a father?
Yeah, can you imagine their white elephant game? It's amazing, I bet.
Right.
Just fucking passing around iPads and shit.
Yeah. iPads in the 70s.
Yeah, they are. That's how rich they are. Shit.
They're in the future.
They're passing around beepers before they come out. I don't know.
Okay. That's more like, not even though.
No,
beepers were more 90s and 80s.
Let's see. I don't know. They got phones that maybe could attach to their cars.
Car phones?
Yeah.
Still no.
No. Mm-mm. Still 80s.
I mean, he was born in 1950s.
We're gonna get talking. Guys, don't even write in with shit we got wrong just now and all this stuff, right? Because we know it. Okay.
Yeah. So what did we study for this one, by the way? I read the Ann Rule book, the I-5 Killer.
Yeah. And
I've just been too deep into Ann Rule right now. That's what I keep using for every damn. We did Ted Bundy, and I read The Stranger Beside Me, which was 18 hours of Ann Rule.
You had enough Ann Rule yet?
Yeah, and then this one was a 10-hour Ann Rule book as far as audio form.
Right.
But it was good. She's very extensive. She does a good job.
Right. I did not get a chance to read the book, so I'm interested in hearing.
That being said, I read the book like 3 weeks ago, and so it's not completely fresh in my mind. So I've had to do some recent studying, and
Yeah, because we planned to do this episode a while back, like right before Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
So we've actually been studying this one for a while.
Yeah.
So we just had to do some refreshers.
Fascinating guy. I loved studying him. He is probably the most egotistical serial killer that we've done. Honestly, like this guy,
Yeah.
his vanity knows no bounds.
Right,
Honestly,
right.
like even deep into prison, like still to this day, like meticulously manicured and just
Very petty too.
very
Just
petty.
Little things that people say, like he's not the kind of guy that can just brush it off.
His image was fucking everything to
If
this
he had
guy.
a podcast, he would read every bad review and retaliate every show.
Dude, he'd go kill him. He would literally drive their house. and kill
Literally
them.
jack off on their face and then kill them. Oh my God. Literally. That's
would.
how personal he takes it.
Yeah.
Like he's just that kind of person. Right?
So keep that in mind when you do bad reviews, guys. There could be someone like this guy. They're not going to just maybe throw a little off comment like us every now and then. They might literally come to your house.
I try to retaliate just right on the whatever medium you use. I try to just retaliate there.
Yeah, Podbean, watch out.
Yeah.
You say something bad, and Michael's coming for you.
Hey, fair is fair, man.
Yeah, so we talked about like the lack of dysfunction in his family. It seemed like very wholesome.
Yeah.
He becomes a football star at Newport High School.
Right. I mean, later on, he says that he felt like his family was kind of controlled by the women.
Yeah.
And I don't know how true that was, but I guess his mother was very domineering. Mm-hmm. But I think that was just because she was at home and she had to be the main disciplinary. And maybe he kind of misinterpreted that.
Well, not only that, but at a young age, he starts doing things that you got to kind of discipline. Like we talked about him being a star in high school, but at a very young age, he became bit of an exhibitionist, going around and just randomly flashing people his junk.
Oh, yeah. There was that, too. So that's kind of out of the ordinary.
His first arrest came in high school for indecent exposure. Now, back in this time, it was
boys being
not
boys.
Like, yeah.
Out there showing his dick on the bridge.
Obviously, now we know different, but back then, like being a peeping Tom and like being an exhibitionist and just flashing things, like it was just kind of like frowned upon. But it wasn't really. It was more of a slap on the wrist, like, "Hey, cut it out, cut it out,
Yeah,
put it away,
put it away,
put it away, move along now, move
There's
along."
a time and a place. There's a time and a place.
Right, especially when you're in a small town and you're a successful athlete, and you're like kind of like the crowning jewel of the family and of the little town.
He's probably a star in the town too. I mean, anybody that eventually gets drafted by an NFL team, you're probably the shit in your small town. People know about you.
Yeah. He was, like we talked about, exposing yourself was only a misdemeanor back then.
Right.
And there was no sex offender list that you get put on. Like now, like anything you do, like you pee near a school, sex offender list.
Oh, yeah.
But that was...
People look at you completely different now.
I actually looked it up. Pre-1994, few states required convicted sex offenders to register addresses with local law enforcement. The 1994 Jacob Wetterling Crimes Against Children and Sexually Violent Offender Act required the sex offender registration program. So it started in the early 90s that they finally started doing this.
That was just in 94?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is many years pre that. And it's like we said, just put your,
That's not
put
that
your dick
long
away,
ago.
move along. And there's no record of this. We've
Right.
talked so many times where if like they would have kept a record from the first time something happened, they could have had a better idea of what they were dealing with when they finally bust him
Well, like
later
we
on.
said, it's small town. It's probably the local cop picks him up and they know where he lives. Like, come on, we're going to go tell your dad, Randy. Come on, man. You can't be out here doing this shit, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and also he has his coaches to look out for him, whereas that's their star, that's their success riding on this big fast receiver.
Yeah.
So he did well enough in high school to get some small time scholarship offers. He would end up going to Treasure Valley Community College in Ontario, Oregon.
Right.
He's a bigger fish in a small pond there.
Mm-hmm. It must have been a pretty good sized community college though. If they did have a football program, right?
Yeah.
So he did get on there for about a year.
Yeah, and he's playing, and he's excelling in every sport. He's not just playing football. He's doing really well in basketball. But his problems wouldn't go away. He keeps freaking being an exhibitionist, keeps going around flashing everyone.
Right.
And then here's his first example of like a real crime. He was arrested for breaking into a girlfriend's house and trashing her bedroom. But due to a lack of evidence, the jury found him not guilty.
Right.
And so this is like, I don't know, it's the first example of his ego where it's like if a girl would dump him, he just couldn't let it go. It's like, I'm perfect. How could they do that to me?
Yeah, and that's what happened here. He just had to get revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the equivalent of someone like tweeting out some fake news about you and then just jumping on there and ripping them apart like a little kid.
Right. And then in 1971, he would transfer to Portland State University where he became a born-again Christian and took religion very seriously. Not a popular kid in school. He was well known,
Right.
but like he didn't hang out like generally with like the popular crowds. Everyone
Right.
knew him. He was like the good-looking dude, the successful football player, jock guy.
Right.
But a lot of people, like, there was mixed reviews on the guy. Like, some
Yeah,
people
there
thought
was.
it was super nice, like, believed his act.
Right.
And other people, like, I don't know, there's something weird about the guy.
Most people always had good things to say, but they would end it with, but.
I'm not that surprised.
Yeah, I'm not that surprised. Like, honestly, like, he was kind of strange, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I
let's
can see
talk
that.
about some of the quotes from, like, football players who played with him at PSU. There's quotes all over the place from former PSU teammates. Here's one. Who didn't want to be named. He was a little strange, maybe stranger than we thought. You just had a bad feeling about the guy. There was like something underneath his mask. And some people said like he cared too much about his image of like a guy that would do any good act. Like he wanted to be a good guy, but
Right.
it almost seemed fake.
Yeah, here's a quote. One person said, it seemed real important to him that he come across as someone who would do the right thing.
Exactly.
Almost like it was keeping him together. Like it was very important to him. He even joined the Campus Crusade for Christ
Yeah.
and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was going above and beyond to really create this reputation.
Right, but except and then you get the other side. So here's Tim Temple, PSU secondary coach in 1973. This is the guy in charge of the DBs who were supposed to cover Randy, so he
Right.
knows a little bit about him. He said, "It shocked me when he went to jail. If there were 100 guys on the team, he'd be the 99th guy that's expected to do something like that."
Right.
So like we said, some guys bought into his act more. Some people
Yeah.
bought into his act more than others.
But also, he was coaching the other side of the ball, so he really didn't know him that much.
He was the quarterback for PSU in 1972, the guy throwing him passes. Doesn't surprise me that he was a wide receiver, by the way. If there's ever going to be a football player, serial killer, like position you would have to choose, it'd be wide receiver.
Why?
Because they're the most egotistical ones. They're the ones that are like, they're doing the celebration dances. They're the ones that are causing drama on the sidelines, getting into it. Give me the ball more. It's all about them.
But
You know, the Terrell Owens types.
well, because they're the ones that are most likely to score.
Yeah.
I mean, your rusher is not going to be your leading touchdown scorer. you know?
Exactly. Most likely to
Okay.
score, Michael.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's definitely going to be those people doing the celebrations and things is what I'm getting at.
Right.
Not necessarily they're going to be the cockiest.
Running backs, though, they're more likely to score, I would say, and they're not as known for being flamboyant and eccentric and causing problems. And
I mean, I guess maybe in the red zone.
wide receiver is
like-
the diva position. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Okay, it is.
Think about
Yeah.
all the divas and like Ocho Cinco and like Randy Moss. I wouldn't say
Fucking
Randy Moss
Crabtree
is-
with the chains.
Crabtree, yeah, just
Yeah,
that's the position for
I
it.
got you. Okay.
Here's another quote from John Kerry, the quarterback. I got to know him. He was a friend. I was surprised when some of this stuff started coming down, but on reflection, I thought that does sort of add up.
You know what? He did always have his dick out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can. There was a lot of quotes like that where people just weren't completely surprised.
Right. And so we talked about his prowess on the college front at PSU, how he took religion real seriously, doing the Crusader thing.
Right.
But he didn't seem to interfere with his need to expose himself to women. He was arrested repeatedly during the few years for indecent exposure during this time.
Yeah, he was really trying to be, but on the outside, he was really trying to be like the Tim Tebow of this place.
Right.
Like he was trying to be the all-around, and of course his ego was getting pumped up too because he's probably one of the best players this college has ever seen.
Yeah.
In a
Well,
long
what's
time.
crazy is when they talk about his stats at, like during college and even high school and stuff, they were so like underwhelming. They're like during the season he had like 220 yards and like 2 touchdowns, and it's like, really? That's it? And I get it, like a lot of times in these smaller colleges and in high school you don't have great quarterbacks, so you're not airing the ball out all the time.
Right. But on the Columbine spectrum, maybe he performed really well. You know what I'm trying to say? Like
Exactly. They could see the
He was
talent.
fast,
You could
he
see the
was
talent, and if
tall,
with the
yeah.
right program and the right quarterback and that type of thing, he probably could be a freak.
Gotcha.
He was described by his coach, I guess. So as we're getting to where it's time, like his college days are coming up, and like it's NFL draft season's coming, where it's not the draft back then was not like it is now. There was way less. I think there's way more rounds back then than there are now.
Oh, okay.
Way more players getting drafted.
I'm not quite the draft aficionado like you are. Yeah,
Well, now it's a
I don't
huge
know.
deal.
Right.
Back then, it was held in like a hotel room, and it was not televised. Like you had to read the newspaper to see what your team drafted, type of thing. But there was one team that was interested in Randy in particular. The Green Bay Packers had a coach who was looking for a receiver
Right.
of his prowess, and went to the PSU college and talked to his head coach, who was a new head coach at the time,
Right.
and wanted to know the scoop on this young wide receiver, Randy Woodfield, who obviously he did not know like all of his criminal activity. He did
Right.
not know about all the flashing
course
and
not.
stuff. It had been kept under wraps.
And you know why I think that was? I think that the head coach at PSU had played a big part in keeping that under wraps.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it earlier, he's seeing dollar signs too.
Yeah.
Because he's thinking, oh, this is the biggest thing that could happen to my football program, and I just started here, and I've already groomed an NFL player. You know, potentially,
Yeah.
whether he did or not,
Right.
he's already getting these big names coming to his stadium and checking out his players. Like, he'll do anything to keep Randy on the spectrum.
Right.
You know what I mean? Of possible professional athletes.
Yeah, and it said that the coach he was a little worried about trying to oversell Randy.
Right.
And so this NFL coach comes down, talks to him, and he's trying to kind of like sell him but not oversell him. So he's telling him like, yeah, he's a good route runner. He's got good hands. He's
Right.
good on the outside. He won't go over the middle and take hits. He's kind of
He's a pretty boy.
He's a finesse guy. But there's
He's a couple extra wristbands kind of guy.
It's hilarious. I saw another quote from a teammate at the time at PSU that said that like he was more concerned about grooming himself. He was constantly.
That's what I'm saying.
It almost
It's
reminds you of like one of the Spartans back in the day, where like before battle they're just grooming themselves. I just picture him on the sideline doing his hair like Clay Matthews type of thing.
Right. They're shaving his chest.
Yeah, not the type of guy that's going to put his body on the line for the team.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was a good up the sideline.
Yeah, he's
speed
not a slot
guy.
receiver. He's on the outside.
The safety's coming over the middle. He's just going to be like, I'm good.
Nah.
Kind of Randy Moss-esque. Randy was known for the same thing. Like, I'm not going to kill myself. I'll live for the next play.
Right.
But
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
very good looking dude, very athletic. But I mean, for the time, like we're talking 60s, 70s. He was 6 foot 170,
Yeah.
which nowadays would be a tiny receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
Tiny. I mean,
Jesus. That's like my size.
and
That's
very
definitely not big enough for the NFL.
honestly, for a receiver, very, very pedestrian speed for like today's standards. Like a
Right.
receiver is expected to run in the 4.4s.
Oh,
4.5 is kind of like a bigger, lumbering, like big time receiver, like a
Right.
big guy on the outside. Anything above 4.5, and you're talking like that guy's a special teamer.
Right.
He ran a 4.7 in the 40, and that was considered fast in this time. That's what I ran in high school.
yeah,
I was
that's
clocked
not
at
that
4.71.
Yeah.
And I was no chance of going to
No.
even, I was even getting
the
scholarship
time we were in high
offers for
school,
college.
no. The game is too fast now. The game just keeps getting faster.
Honestly, that's like D lineman now. 4.7.
Yeah.
That's
300-pound guys are running 4.7s.
Yeah, seriously. There's like nose tackles running
Right.
that. If you know anything about football, those are like the guys that are 300 plus pounds.
Right.
run
Yeah, these guys
4.7s
can
up.
move. Yeah.
There's some O linemen that do that, like offensive tackles that can do that now. But at the time, that was considered really fast. Here's the scouting report for Randy Woodfield at the time. Timed at 4.7 in the 40, cuts on a dime, has good hands and catches well in a crowd, fluid and smooth, hustles, and good jumper. So he would use these things later on in ways to get away from the police.
Yeah, he would.
He would push the boundaries at times on some of his crimes where he would get seen by someone, know the police are coming,
Right.
and still be able to evade there on foot at times.
Yeah. He would just use the police as training, I think.
Oh, yeah.
He would just, take off running, let go, with a parachute on.
Right.
No, it's,
Yeah. And so the draft finally comes around in 1973, and the Green Bay Packers would select him. What round was it?
I'm not sure of the round, but he was the 428th pick overall
Yeah.
in the 74 draft.
And we looked it up because I was talking about how the draft nowadays, they don't pick as many players. A lot of the guys go undrafted.
Right.
He would have been a practice squad guy. He would have been an undrafted player because now there's around 253 picks
Right.
in today's. That's Mr. Irrelevant is 253. So he's like a whole other draft.
He's a whole other
on top
draft.
of the
He's-
normal draft. That's how late he got picked.
I mean, he's not considered today.
He was not. He was probably drafted as like, well, this guy's got potential. That's probably the only reason they drafted because he was fast for the time,
Right.
Fairly big for a receiver during the time. Now,
Right.
now, like I said,
Honestly, I don't think he's even playing Division I football
right? No, he's playing for
nowadays.
these minor colleges.
Yeah, he's not even playing Division I football nowadays.
Right. He was a guy that they thought maybe could probably contribute to special teams. Maybe someday make the starting squad. Maybe.
Right. I think mostly he got drafted out of potential. It
Right.
wasn't things that he'd already proved that he could do. It was stuff. It was the possibility.
Yeah, and obviously because they didn't know what kind of shenanigans he was up to off the field either.
Oh yeah.
Had they known an inkling of any of that, there's no way they would have taken a chance on a guy with his minimal talent as far as
no,
a guy you're going to pick with your 400th pick.
Right.
He's going to have to be like Gronkowski type talent.
Right.
If you know what this guy's up to off the field.
Right. If OBJ is out exposing himself, maybe we can overlook it.
Right.
But this guy, no.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just not worth the risk.
Yeah. Well, of course, after being drafted, he's bragging to everybody about it. He's the talk of the town. His contract was a 1-year, $16,000 contract as a skilled football player, is the way they termed it. It had some bonuses that if he caught 25 passes, he would get an extra $2,000. He would get an extra $3,000 if he caught 30 passes.
Okay.
That was good money during the time for a young kid out of college.
But I think the details of that contract says it all. The fact that they were still unsure about him as far as skill-wise. They're like, we'll give you this for your time. Yeah. But if you actually do what we think you're capable of, then we'll start giving you some real money. Because it was like $20,000?
Yeah.
25 catches? And $30,000?
No, 2.
Oh, 2,000.
2,000 or 3,000 with an extra.
Oh, okay. Well, that's still not huge money.
No, it's nothing.
Especially not for pro ball. That's, I don't know, dude. I mean, he could probably make that. Working in a factory or something at that time?
No. I mean, this is good money. I mean, here's a reference. You could say Bart Starr, who during the time made $100,000. People thought he was overpaid for that $100,000 salary. Wow. So this is, I mean, they're talking about 71, 73, somewhere around there. That's,
yeah.
I mean, you could buy a house cash with that $16,000 1-year contract. I'm sure.
Right.
Or
yeah, but that's spread out though.
1 year. $16,000.
Yeah.
So in a year, he probably could have bought a house with that money.
Just didn't feel.
Obviously, you get game checks and stuff, and like that's assuming he makes the team and all that.
Right.
And he has far way to go before he's making the team.
Right.
He's got his contract stipulated that he kept himself in peak condition. He had to wear a coat and necktie in public places. The Packers were a very pristine. They were like a great organization during this time. They were coming off a big run of championships.
Right.
The Lombardi days.
That's right.
And they had this is not if they like I said this team, especially if they'd known the type of guy this guy was.
Yeah, they wouldn't have.
This has been the last organization to touch him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they were like them in Dallas. Like they're just the class acts of the NFL. I mean, they were just cat's meow.
At the time, he was working as a burger chef. This allowed him to quit his job and just focus on running routes, staying in peak condition, like talked about, and catching footballs.
Yeah.
Everyone made a huge deal that he was drafted. One of Woodfield's roommates told the Oregonian, he put a lot of pressure on himself to make it big. That April, he attended a mini camp in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then over the following few months after that, he would just spend all of his time keeping in shape. And then in June, the team sent him a first-class plane ticket along with instructions for an airport limo pickup that would take him to the team's training camp.
He ends up keeping these tickets with him, like in his wallet.
He always kept he kept every letter the Packers ever sent him.
Right, but he kept the tickets with him though, which was crazy. That
in
was
his wallet as proof that he played.
Yeah, he was probably just going around to strangers at bars. Like, hey, check this out.
So he declined the plane ticket and decided to drive out from Oregon to the Packers facilities, and he would drive his Volkswagen Bug. Gold Volkswagen Bug. Interesting choice.
Right.
This is the poor man's Ted Bundy.
Right. He didn't ask for the Carfax. We saw the previous owner remove the passenger seat. It was weird.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, I can deal with it. I can put my equipment there.
This is around the same time Ted Bundy's out doing his thing.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Ted Bundy's Volkswagen was not retired.
No.
They're just simultaneously driving around
in yellow bugs
in the Pacific Northwest in bugs, doing creepy shit.
Right.
In July, Woodfield was among the rookies who competed against the Bears in a scrimmage game at Lambeau Field. Now, this is like his only time that he's playing in a Packers uniform for the Packers against the team. It's a scrimmage.
Right. How'd he do? You do anything?
I don't think so.
Nah, he didn't do anything. Shit, but he looked good out there, I bet.
Right. So the Packers end up releasing him, big surprise, on August 19th, 1974, before their season began.
Right.
There's word that there is some like rumblings. The Packers never made an official statement, but they talked about there was rumblings about maybe his criminal activity outside.
Yeah.
In the Wisconsin area.
Right, and he claimed that the Packers were just working on their running game and weren't really looking for another receiver.
Oh, of course.
But then why did they draft you if they weren't looking for another receiver?
Right.
So, yeah, it was obviously some outside things going on that they caught wind of.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't taking no hiatus from the shenanigans in Wisconsin.
The police contended that the team had other reasons for cutting him other than the running game. Packers officials declined to comment on that. But
Yeah.
I believe there was 10 different incidents around Wisconsin where he was going around doing
Right.
exhibitionists, flashing, stuff like that.
Right.
Which, if you get caught that many times, there's a lot more.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly right.
That's just the times he got busted.
That's exactly right. And Green Bay's not a huge town either. It's not huge. So and the Packers are huge.
Right.
I mean, they're
they
a
are
huge franchise. I mean,
they're the only team that's owned by the fans.
Right. The Packers have fans all over the U.S.
Yeah.
So right there in Green Bay, they are the news.
Try getting season tickets for the Packers. You're on a waiting list for like 30 years.
Yeah.
You'll die before you get them. Seriously.
Yeah,
they have to be passed down through the family pretty much for you to get season tickets to them.
Jesus.
Yeah. So he's cut by the Packers. It's a monumental disappointment to him. He's angry. He's depressed.
Yeah.
Promptly dropped out of college. He only had 3 semesters left for graduation. And at age 25, it seems like he
still had a scholarship too.
Yeah.
Real quick, he could have went back and finished for free.
Yeah.
And
but he only saw himself as a professional football player. When that dream came to an end, it seemed like in his own, like everyone else is like, dude, you still got your whole life ahead of you. But it seemed like once that fell through, he's like, I don't give a shit about anything else. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go rape and kill at this point.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because it was right after this that the crime spree starts.
Right. Yeah, he's like, I demand respect one way or another, and I guess this is how I'm gonna do it.
Yep. So at age 25, he has no money, no job, no prospects. He's kind of floating around. He's a drifter. He's going from town to town in his bug. And that's a lot of crimes start appearing on the I-5 during this time. The I-5 freeway.
Yeah.
Going up the West Coast there.
Yeah, for like the next, 4 months.
Right.
It gets kind of crazy.
And so in 1975, after being caught red-handed trying to rob a woman at knife point, Woodfield was sentenced to 10 years in Oregon State Prison, paroled after only 4 years. So this is what happened here was there's these women that in the same park that kept getting, they'd be jogging at night and they'd get snatched up by this guy who'd come out of the woods along the park.
Right.
And at knife point, he would rape and rob them.
Right.
And they gave this description of the guy, tall guy, athletic, good looking.
Right.
And basically, the police did a little sting operation where they sent a female cop in, dressed in jogging outfit, had her go out there at that park and jog at night. And obviously, they were waiting nearby in a van or whatever. Sure enough, guy comes out of the woods, matching the description, starts following her, grabs her up, and with a paring knife. Tries to rob tries to rob her. The police grab him up. He immediately tells him his name's Randy Woodfield.
Yeah,
and he's under arrest. And then we talked about he was sentenced to 10 years and got parole after 4 years. He'd be back on the streets.
God, yeah, he got such light sentences.
Right,
he really did. I mean, I guess being a good-looking white guy in the 70s, he got some pretty light sentences. And then a lot of the stuff, like Lauren was talking about earlier, if all this stuff would have been documented as a teen, like going through, through high school or even as an adult, like in college when he was at PSU, if all this stuff would have been documented, this would have been a lot easier.
Right.
Like they would have seen the signs. There would be all this adding up to this point.
Yeah.
And they would not have just got these slap on the wrists over and over again.
Yep. He would end up being free on parole by July 1979 after serving 4 years. And then on October 9th, 1980, a woman named Cherry Ayers was found raped and murdered in Portland, Oregon. She had been bludgeoned and stabbed repeatedly in the neck. She was a former classmate of Randy's, and he was brought in for questioning on her murder, obviously with a prior conviction for a violent crime.
Right.
And having known her, he was immediately a suspect.
Right.
He would refuse to submit a polygraph and was written down as evasive and deceptive during questioning by police. However, they had nothing to tie him directly as far as evidence goes. He didn't match the blood type and the semen that was found on Ayers' body.
How did that? This case right here just baffles me. Like, how did it not?
Well,
match?
he did it, but they weren't that great at the time at matching these things. Is part of the problem.
This is.
He had a
this is
certain
awful.
thing. He was a secretor, a blood secretor in his semen, which is like a very small percentage of men have that, which would end up being something that would help to convict him later on.
Right.
But I don't know what they must have flubbed this first one here.
Oh God, it's
right,
crucial.
big time. Like they could have locked him up. They could have
That's
locked him up.
understatement of the century.
They could. This was their chance to lock him up at the beginning of his spree of raping and killing.
Yeah, saving tons of lives right here.
Yeah. Thanksgiving Day, just a month later, 22-year-old Darcy Fix and 24-year-old Keith Attic were found dead. They were found in Nix's North Portland home. They had been shot in the head. This is more people that he also knew Darcy Fix. And so he's killing women that have done him wrong, I guess, in his eyes.
Right.
And let's talk a little bit more about his character. Ann Rule described a lot of stuff that was just about him that was strange. He had to have this nonstop Rolodex of women. He would meet someone just randomly at a bar, or he was frequent nighttime, night crawler type guy. He would go to bars late in the night, drinking beer. He liked to drink a lot. He'd go to these bars. He'd meet a girl. Some of them he would even like creep them out a little bit.
Right.
Some of them they found him interesting and intriguing. Like we talked about, he's a good-looking guy. Dark hair, dark eyes. Tall.
Yeah, even
he was
the
a tall,
victim
dark,
said
and
that.
handsome type. You know.
Yeah. I feel like he was the type of guy who went in, and anytime he spoke to a woman, it was just a given that she was going to be attracted to him.
Yes.
And if they weren't, he took that offense. He got offended by that.
Right.
Like, why are you not attracted to me? Okay, bitch. Well, I'm going to do something to retaliate. You know what I mean? Like, he's the type of guy that's walking down the street and he thinks every guy's girlfriend is looking at him.
Exactly.
Like they want to be with him instead of with their boyfriend or whatever.
Exactly.
He's that type of guy. I can feel it.
Yeah,
You know, you can really get that sense from reading about him.
And so he would go to these bars and whatnot, and he would meet a girl, and he'd get her number, and then that would go into he had like a black book filled with women's numbers, like hundreds of them.
Right.
And anytime he would travel to their town, he would call them on a payphone. Keep in mind, he met them for like 10 minutes
Right.
a lot of times. And like he had this much bigger idea of what their relationship was than they had. They were like, oh, I just gave this dude my number or whatever. He was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And like he'd call him up and be like, so I'm coming in, you want to hang out, this type of thing. And like if they would decline him, he would look at it as like they dismissed him, or he would later tell a female friend of his that he didn't understand why so many women stood him up. And that was like this ding to his ego, and he would take that personally.
Right.
And it's like, but he didn't mean anything to these women. He just thought that he had this long-lasting impression after only meeting them for a few minutes because his ego was so out of control.
That's right. Yeah, he thought he was just God's gift to women, and any woman should be happy to be in his presence or be with him.
Right. Now, that being said, some women he did leave a long-lasting impression on because he was a good-looking dude.
Right.
I wouldn't say he was real charismatic from my impression of him, but like he just depended on his good looks and that type of thing. Some women that were more... Some women said he was kind of a dull. Like one girl dated him for like a few weeks, and they were like, "There's just nothing to the guy." I got bored because he didn't have anything to talk about.
Right.
You know, he was all looks, looks and brawn.
There watching TV, and he's like, "Did I show you these tickets that the Packers bought me?" Yes, Randy.
In the last 5 minutes, yes.
Yes. Oh my God. You're so boring.
Right. So now with this double murder here, this double homicide of Darcy Fix and Keith Attic, they like we said, they were found in Fix's North Portland home, and there was a missing .32 caliber revolver from the home that Darcy Fix her father had given her for home protection.
Right.
A silver-plated, wood-handled revolver,
right.
.32 caliber that would end up being used many times following this by Randall Woodfield. This is his calling card, was his .32 caliber revolver.
Right.
And this is where he got it.
MO.
He stole it from Darcy's house.
Right.
Both of the murders were finally connected to Randy all the way in 2012, many, many years later through DNA after his conviction. December 9th, 1980, Randy began wearing a fake beard and robbing businesses in Washington and Oregon. And he was doing this with a coworker at the time. I forget where he was working.
Right.
Wasn't
he working like 7-Eleven?
He was bouncing around. He was a bartender from time to time. He'd worked at restaurants. And everyone that worked with him remembered him as being a little weird.
And these little jobs like this, to him, were nothing. Like these didn't help his ego at all.
No.
Like this was killing him.
Right. He viewed himself as a much bigger deal than these places.
Right.
But one of the guys he worked with, he would start robbing places with, and that's where he got the idea. And this guy would later say to police that he remembered Randy being at his apartment and trying out these disguises, trying on the fake mustache. And the tape, somewhere along the line, Randy, someone told him that it's a good disguise is to put tape over your nose, like athletic tape.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to, it actually is
like a J.J. Watt thing.
It's proven to be harder to recognize someone in a lineup and like to remember their face if they had tape on their nose, because I guess you just tend to focus on that tape on their nose.
It's something right in the middle of the face.
Right.
Yeah,
it's just
something
distracting.
Yep.
Yeah. And
I can see that.
Although it didn't really help him later on in lineups, people tended to remember him.
It's kind of like if somebody wears sunglasses or even regular glasses, and then you see him without them, it's like, whoa,
right?
Like you look like a different person to me.
So this became kind of his calling card. This I-5 killer would be known to wear athletic tape on his nose,
right,
and a fake beard, and some kind of a cap. He would always wear like a baseball cap,
right?
And
standard like movie star disguises,
right?
Things going on.
Exactly. Now, his first gas station that he would hit with this new disguise was in Vancouver, Washington. He revisited the store on January 8th, 1981. The second time, he made the cashier expose her breast before leaving. And this is something he would do. He's a sexual deviant. He would rob these stores, and he'd get multiple things out of this. He'd get money to maintain his cruising up and down the I-5 and his travels, and he'd always had cash on him.
Yep.
He'd go visit his sister, and she noticed he always had money, but he had no job. She was kind of curious as to that.
Yeah.
These women that he did have friendships with some of these women that he'd keep in the Rolodex.
Yeah.
And like there was one girl that he went to hang out with, and she wanted to just be friends with him, and he went to her house, and he'd start like throwing these little hints like, oh, maybe I'll show up in your bed tonight. She's like, no, definitely don't.
Nope,
like there's a futon out there.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah. But like one thing people always said is like he would talk about how he had these things in line, these jobs or whatever, but he was unemployed currently, but he always had cash.
Always had cash, yeah.
Yeah, and he would tell him that he got some cash from his parents for this and that or whatever, but ultimately it just seemed like he always had more money. And there was one room that he'd end up renting from this random lady that he found through the paper.
Right.
She was always kind of dumbfounded by the fact that he never worked. He would like be playing catch with all the kids in the neighborhood and stuff. He's a big time star, you know. He's showing him his Packer pictures and stuff. Always had cash though.
Oh yeah.
Anytime he'd rack up these giant phone bills, would end up getting him caught later.
Yeah.
These giant collect phone call bills that would be billed to her home.
Right, because he was like making calls near the crime sites too, right?
Yeah.
Near payphones.
But he would always pay. He would always pay, and he always had cash on him, and that's because of these robberies. Now, let's get through some of his crime spree here. December 13th.
Oh, man, this is a crazy crime spree. All this took place over the next, 2 months.
Yeah. December 13th, 1980, he hit an ice cream parlor in Eugene, Oregon. December 14th, a drive-in restaurant in Albany. December 21st, so we're talking in a 2-week span, you got 3 hits here. Waitress in chicken restaurant was forced to masturbate him, and he also robbed it.
And this was a common thing right here. Like, after we kind of glazed over it, but where was she at? The Vancouver, Washington, the very first site that he robbed, and he made her expose her breast. Like, it was a sexual favor after that, almost every single one. If the clerk or somebody was young.
Right.
They said he didn't really mess with anybody that was over the age of 45. Mm-hmm. He would just either kill them or injure them, knock them out, whatever, and just take what he needed.
He loved to hit places, random restaurants at night where there was 2 females working.
Yep.
That was his MO. He liked to. He would stake them out in the night, watch they'd be this brightly lit building in the dark outside, and you could see in there perfectly. And the ideal situation was 2 women. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it would be the older woman who is the superior of the younger woman, and he would take them into a back room and tie up the older woman and sexually assault the younger woman.
Right.
Sometimes, a lot of times, making the older of the 2 pull out their breast or whatever and fondle them while he had the other one oral copulate him.
Yeah.
So he was one thing, he was infatuated with oral. That was his thing.
It was.
And that just plays to his ego, though. I mean, that makes a lot of sense if you know his psyche, because he's all about himself and he wants the woman to please him.
Yep.
No, obviously the woman wouldn't enjoy reciprocation anyway, but there's no giving. It's all take with him. Like,
right.
He's the type of guy that, like, at Christmas, it seems like he would expect nothing but gifts and wouldn't give anything to anybody else. Why would I give to you?
He would, sign everyone a signed photo of him or some shit.
Yeah, that's the gift he would give to them, pictures of himself.
Yeah.
So during this time, this guy's just going off. He's going up and down, just hitting all these different places. The police are kind of trying to wrap their minds around what the hell's going on.
Right. He's not getting big hits here. He's just hitting little stores, gas stations,
but sexually assaulting, shooting some people.
Right.
On January 14th, a man matching the description of the I-5 bandit and wearing a false beard invaded the home of a family that was occupied by two sisters at the time, aged 8 and 10. Parents were not home. Forced his way in and forced them into a bathroom where he sexually assaulted them. This was described in detail in the Ann Rule book, and it was rough, man. I was listening to this, and I texted Michael because he's got a daughter around this age, and I was just like, dude, good luck, because that was a messed up story.
That's the most fucked up part of this whole story.
Right. The older sister, however, later was able to do a phenomenal job in testifying against him and picked him out of a lineup and was like 100% certain. Like, I remember his voice, I remember his face, I remember everything about this guy. She was very smart in that she remembered details about what he was wearing, his facial structure, all that stuff. So at least in the end, she helped to put him away. So 4 days later after that, in Salem, a man matching the same description entered an office building. This one's kind of crazy. This one stuck out in my head as the craziest event that happened.
This is his biggest mistake right here.
Yeah. One of his biggest. He made several, leaving those two little girls alive and not assuming that they could later testify him again, and then leaving another. Although he didn't realize this was a mistake, and you almost can't blame him in this case because this is just a freak thing that happened, honestly. So like we talked about in Salem, Oregon, 4 days later on January 18th, he entered an office building. Perfect situation for him. Two women working late. They were cleaning an office building. That's what they did. They were kind of like custodians. They'd go to different office buildings and clean them.
Right.
The one, I believe, went outside to dump some trash or something, and that's when he grabbed her, pulled her inside. Her name was Sherry Hull. Inside, cleaning. You know what's crazy is Beth talked about this later. She's the one that survived. She said that there was one, like they were all done, and they were like packing up their stuff to leave.
Yeah.
And then I think Sherry noticed one door that had a smudge on it that needed to be cleaned, and the two of them being very thorough in their work.
Right.
Beth said, all right, well, let's clean this window real quick. You go take that out or whatever.
Yeah.
She's in there cleaning the last thing for the night. They should have been gone. And then Beth turns, and Sherry's walking back inside down the hallway, and there's this weird guy with her. You know, and she described him as tall, good-looking, beard,
he's holding her at gunpoint at this point.
He's got that silver-plated revolver, which she remembered the details of later. And he then forced them into a room, told them to get on the floor, where he sexually assaulted them, and told them to lie face down, where Beth then remembered hearing a shot go off and hearing her friend get shot in the head.
Right.
And then the person come over and hearing a gun go off, and her ears began to ring. She got shot in the head.
Yeah, twice.
Well, she got shot, and then he went over to Hull again, shot her because Hull was making noise. After the second shot, he then shot her a third time, but Beth pretended to be dead after the first shot, even though the bullet did not penetrate her skull. Beth is one of the rare people that has apparently a thicker skull. I guess this is the thing. Like, some people have thicker skulls than others.
Wow.
And this .32 caliber bullet, twice directly shot in the head, was unable to penetrate her skull.
That's incredible.
In particular, it is an absolutely incredible thing that happened.
And you'll notice she also goes by an alias in a lot of things. I think it was to protect her identity, of an alias of Lisa Garcia. So if you see that, it's the same person. Beth Wilmot, Lisa Garcia, different articles, different books, whatever. They changed the name, but
she would end up proving to be like the ultimate witness to take him down later on, because this was a guy that shot her twice in the head and killed her friend right in front of her, and he didn't finish her off. He assumed she was dead after two slugs to the head.
Right.
But the bullets, I guess, kind of like ricocheted off her skull and then exited somewhere else out of her skin. I think one went out by her ear. She got up and like staggered to the bathroom and witnessed herself covered in blood and her ears ringing, and called the police.
Right.
Police showed up. Of course, the bandit was gone by then. Woodfield had disappeared.
Just imagine hearing this testimony, because she remembered everything. Imagine hearing this in court if you're a jury. I mean, this is it.
I believe this was the call, which is the crazy thing that it tells you how athletic Randy was. I think this is the call where he fled on foot.
He did, like 4 blocks away or something like that.
And so the police get this call, and this cop turns a corner, and there's this guy standing in like a hoodie with a beard and like tape on his nose.
Right.
And as the cop's hauling ass to this crime scene, he passes this guy and gets a weird feeling about the guy.
Yeah.
The guy's just standing in the corner looking at him. And obviously he's got to get to where he's going. And then later on would recall, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was him.
Yep.
And they did the math. It was like 1 point whatever miles away.
Yeah.
And the time that they clocked, it was like some amazing 6-minute mile or that he was running, or 5-minute mile or whatever he ran. They were trying to, in court, it was later an argument, how could he have gotten to that point where the cop says he saw him
but he
in
was
this
an
amount
athlete.
of time, but he was an athlete.
That's right.
And the adrenaline pumping from just killing someone and the cops coming and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, easily fueled. Probably, yeah, maybe even under a 6-minute mile. I mean, with that kind of adrenaline and running, and yeah.
And so at this point, he's officially dubbed the I-5 killer. Well, he isn't, but there's whoever is doing these crimes is dubbed the I-5 killer. There's composite sketches out there. It's a big story.
There's a ton of them.
Yeah. And then on February 3rd, 1981, the bodies of Donna Eckerd and her 14-year-old daughter were found together in their home in Mountain Gate. Now, this is the family of a well-known firefighter in the area who was at work, and the I-5 killer had made his way into the home, tied up his daughter and wife, and they were found face down on their bed with gunshot wounds to the head, and the daughter had been sodomized. It was just a horrific incident. Yeah. The next day, the same thing happened to a woman just north of Redding, in Redding, California. February 12th, multiple robberies and sexual assaults were reported, all along with a description matching the I-5 killer. And then on February 15th, a woman named Julie Wrights was shot and killed in her home in Beaverton, Oregon. At this point, the police are just scrambling to try and find anything.
Oh, yeah. Tensions are rising. The public is starting to uproar.
Right.
Yeah, it's getting a little crazy. They're like, how are all these killings happening within miles of the interstate, and there's no connections being made?
Right.
There's all these composite sketches. He's leaving witnesses now.
Yeah, you can understand why the public would be outraged during this time. And so this would end up being, his following one would end up being his final murder. On the day after Valentine's Day in 1981, one of Woodfield's former flames, Julie Wrights of Beaverton, Oregon, was shot dead in her home.
So he went back to somebody he knew.
Someone on the Rolodex of girls. He probably thought she snubbed him or whatever. Or maybe she wouldn't give it up. Maybe he couldn't get laid from her or something like that.
Right.
And he took offense to it or whatever. Whatever it was, he just took what he wanted, might makes right, Carl Panzram style. Went to her home. And I believe it was one of her friends that ended up connecting his name back into the fold here. They can find a guy who has a criminal history.
Right.
When they really look into him, they see that he's a deviant, sexual deviant, and the cops get onto him because of one of Julie Wrights' friends.
Right.
So they start pestering her, and they go like, You've told us everything you know. Is there anyone? I know sometimes it seems like maybe not even something that we can use, but you just never know. Just tell us anything.
Maybe someone insignificant, or at least you thought was insignificant.
And she goes, there was this one guy that she'd met at a bar, and he got her number, and every now and then he would check in on her, and he drove a bug, and he had a beard, and he kind of fits. Now that I think about it, he kind of fits, and so she gives him the name Randy Woodfield. Was his name, and she said he was a little weird.
Right.
And so they look into Randy Woodfield, these detectives, and they see a lot of similarities in the way the guy looks.
Yeah.
They start looking into his past, and they go, oh, boy, we might have something here.
Right.
And so through the months, the rapes and murders had continued, but the police caught up with Woodfield in March and linked him to crimes all over the region. And by June of 1981, he would end up on trial. But the way they got there was like that they met with him, and of course he wasn't giving up anything at first.
Right. He denied everything, still does, right?
Yeah, and he felt so confident that there was nothing in his home, that home that we talked about he was living at, that he, through the paper.
So they search it, and what do they find? The tape.
Yeah, they find some athletic tape. They find some athletic tape, which they kept, and that was all on court order. They had a search warrant, and certain things they were looking for. One of them was athletic tape, so they were able to keep that and take them with them.
Yep.
One thing they found was a random slug, a spent slug from a .32 caliber gun, inside his gym bag. For some reason, he had one slug that had been used and hit something, and it was in his bag. They don't know if there was a memento from him. If
Must have picked it up from a crime scene or something. Thought, well, they'll never find me now.
Right.
Yeah.
And kept it in his gym bag instead of getting rid of it.
Right.
They didn't find the guns, unfortunately.
No. But he later admitted to having the gun.
Right.
But he said he threw it in the river, which is a terrible thing to do, because he was like, I knew it was illegal.
I was on parole.
Yeah, I was on parole. I didn't want to have it.
Right.
Like, why don't you just sell it or whatever, give it to someone else? Like, why do you throw it in the river to get rid of it?
One thing that kind of got him too was the bullets that he chose were like a .32 long Colt. They were a very rare bullet. They talked to some sports stores, the police did, and found out that of the amount of ammunition that they sold, that's different types, that type was the least sold. Like they had sold like 4 boxes in a year. you know, and everything else was like 50 boxes, 100 boxes of this, that.
Oh, interesting.
This 32 long Colt that he chose to use, that was the slug was found in his bag.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't have the gun, they knew that that was the type of bullet that they found.
Right.
And that was the type of bullet that was for almost all of his victims. Tied everything together perfectly. It was a rare bullet. The fact that he had that in his bag was a huge coincidence. And he had the same exact type of tape, athletic tape, and they were able to, like, through forensics, find out that, like, it most likely came from the same batch, this tape.
Oh, wow.
Not only was it the same brand and color and everything, but it was most likely the same, because
they could do that, but they couldn't match his semen to his blood.
Right.
All right.
Another thing we haven't mentioned, they did find out through questioning that he admitted to having herpes. He'd caught it from some girl, and some of the victims, like the surviving victim that got shot in the head twice,
Right.
She
contracted it from him?
Contracted herpes after this incident.
Wow.
And she swears she had never had it up until then. So there's several victims that contracted herpes from him as well, which is another thing that tied it, which is makes it even sadder. They already have to live with the mental grief of that mental trauma from what he did to them, but then also they now have herpes, which never goes away fully. You can go into remission, but
yeah, they have this constant reminder.
Right.
Of him. Yeah.
This ugly thing that pops up and just reminds them of this ugly person.
Right.
Yeah. But what did him in more than anything else was a trace of phone calls that he had made from payphones. He loved to keep in contact with everyone. He always liked writing letters to these girls that he barely knew and acting like they were, you know, they'd been together forever.
He also sent them signed, like, nude photos.
Oh,
like
yeah.
some women, right?
He had one nude photo in particular. Well, I don't even know if it was full nude, but anyways, it was this oiled up picture of himself that he would send to all these girls, and they didn't even.
He sent it to Playgirl too.
Yeah,
and he actually got a response. I think
they said that that it was in consideration for their like guy next door section or whatever.
Guy next door. That was probably a hit to his ego.
Yeah. Yeah, so he did send him that, and he got a response that he might be published, that they would let him know and further contact or whatever, and he obviously never got published.
Damn.
All right.
Man, it could have been his big break, man.
Yeah.
And could have exposed himself legally forever.
But he was making these phone calls. He would take these trips up the I-5, stop into different towns during times when victims would get killed or raped, and he'd be in the town, and the way that they could log that he was there during the time of this crime was that he would make these collect calls. He would use his the home that he was living in with the woman that he rented the room from.
Right.
He would use her phone bill as a way to charge these calls.
Yeah.
And so she had a log on her phone bill of all these different payphone calls that he was making from these towns that he was in when crimes were committed. And so when the police went to the home that he was staying in for the search, they talked to the girl there, and she's like, "You don't think that he could be the I-5 killer, do you? Like, my son plays ball with him. Like, he's so nice, this and that. But there is things about him that are weird."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Ma'am, can we get your phone records?" And she's like, "Of course, yeah. He makes collect calls all the time on my phone thing." They look it up, and they're looking at it. There's like a map drawn of everywhere that was hit, every robbery. It seemed like he made a call to some girl from a payphone near where these crimes happened, and just unknowingly leaving a complete trace of where he had gone, where all these crimes happened.
Here's something I thought
And what's funny is his dad was high up in a phone company, and that's a phone is ultimately the biggest thing that helps convince a jury later on.
It raised him, but it also destroyed him.
Yeah.
So do you think, this is something I just thought of, do you think these calls are like taking place right before the robberies? Like he's like, "Oh, I really got to get my rocks off. Let's call this girl in this town," and then of course they decline him, you know, because they ain't heard from him. And he's like, "Well, I guess I'll have to just make someone do it.
Yeah,
I guess I'll just go check out this Dairy Queen,
that,
or whatever." You
or
know what I mean?
I think they were like that. Yes, they could fuel that fury that would.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it was
that, or there was also calls that he would make to his sister right after a crime.
Why?
Just, I think he would feel.
Give him a sense of normalcy?
Yes, exactly. I think he'd feel a little bit disgusted for what he just did and be like, "I need just a normal conversation with my sister. I'm going to catch up with her, see what's going on.
Bring me back down to earth."
Right.
Huh.
That type of thing. So they're able to connect that, and they think they have a pretty strong case building here, but they need one more thing. They need to bring in all of these eyewitnesses, the surviving victims of things. And so they set up a big lineup. They have some police officers that they found from local agencies that they set up in a lineup. The guys that kind of look like, that fit Randy, his age, his height, guys with beards, dark hair. They find some police officers to fill in the lineup, and they put Randy Woodfield, who's in custody, in this lineup, and bring in all of these victims, the two young girls that he had raped in their home. They bring in Beth Wilmot, who had been shot twice in the head with a thick skull.
at the office building.
At the office building.
Right.
Along with several other people. And there was even an incident we didn't bring up earlier that there's an incident at a restaurant, I believe, where he locked 2 women in a bathroom stall
Right.
and sexually assaulted them. And one of them's boyfriend showed up and was trying to force his way into the bathroom, like, what's going on in here?
Yeah.
Randy, like, forced his way back out of the bathroom and ran off. And so, like, he was part of the lineup, like, his memory, the girls that he in the bathroom stalls.
Yeah.
He may have well saved their lives, that boyfriend, by showing up then, because he most likely
absolutely.
would have shot them.
Oh, definitely.
Shortly thereafter. So the boyfriend, the girls that were there,
Right.
they all and for the most part, it was like a 90% lineup success as far as like everyone picked him.
Right.
And it was because large in part to his voice was what most of afterwards the police would interrogate the girls and say,
Right.
why did you pick number 4 or whatever number he was? And they would say his voice is I'll never forget that voice. He had this soft tone. It was eerie in that he was so like polite and like soft spoken when he would
Right.
request them to do these horrific things. And they remembered his voice more than anything, but also his build was different than the other cops. You know, he had just a very athletic build to him
Right,
that they
right.
didn't forget as well.
Wow.
So, I mean, he could disguise his nose with the tape and the fake beard and all that stuff, but he could never change his voice.
That's right. He couldn't.
And his build was something even with a hoodie on and stuff they remembered.
Wow. Should have worked on his impressions.
Right.
Should try impersonating a good football player.
Got him.
Right. So Woodfield would be charged with murder for the murder of Sherry Hull and would be sent to trial for that.
Right.
That would occur in October 1981. He was tried in Salem for the murder of Sherry Hull,
And also
as well as charges of sodomy and attempted murder
On Beth Wilmot.
Right. They went with that one because that was the strongest case right away.
Absolutely. Because like we talked before, Beth Wilmot testified in court.
Yeah.
And she remembered everything.
This
from
is
that
a
night.
woman that was shot in the head by him and
Yeah.
watched her friend die next to her. So
Right.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
She
this is
remembered
going to
everything.
play on a jury strongly, and that tied in with all the different with the phone records and the gun and the weird slug in his bag and all that stuff helped to convict him, and he would end up being sentenced to life in prison, as well as sentenced to an additional 165 years for convictions of the other crimes, the sodomy and the attempted murder. Now, bottom line is he was locked up at this time, and they threw away the keys, never getting out.
Right.
And so they could try him for all these other murders that they knew he had done.
Right.
And all these other rape charges and all that stuff. But I think at a certain point, these were in different states, a lot of times
That's right.
different counties.
But they were
And-
still compiling this evidence just in case.
Yes.
If you ever had a chance of parole or whatever, they still have all this stuff.
So long story
on file
short, they
waiting.
decided with a lot of these victims to not pursue the murder charges against him and do more costly trials.
Right.
And bring the victims up and have all that trauma be brought back up.
Right.
They decided he's locked up for good. However, if he does ever become eligible for parole again, we will then convict him.
Exactly.
We will then sentence him to for more trials for the other murders that he had committed. So
Right.
basically, he'll never get out.
Right. And there's enough evidence to give a lot of these victims' families closure.
Right.
There was pretty much no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, he was there, the phone calls lined up, same MO.
And we talked about DNA later on, 2012. He would end
Right.
up they would end up solidifying. Okay, we know he did it based
Yep.
off of DNA now.
Yep.
And while he was charged with 4 murders, it's estimated that he committed as many as 44 murders. Some people, sleuths online, have connected him to this and that, up to 44. Police say about a dozen murders. Obviously, many sex crimes against people on countless,
Oh, absolutely.
countless sex
And
crimes.
robberies.
Yeah. Some interesting stuff happened after his conviction. While in prison, he's writing to everyone. One interesting interaction that happened was with a person who we have done a case on before, a person that Ann Rule also had a book on as well. Diane Downs
That's
was
right.
on trial for murdering one of her children and shooting
Yeah.
2 of her other kids during the time that Randy Woodfield was locked up in prison in Oregon.
Yeah.
And she was all the news, and he reads the news, and him being a criminal. Also important to say, he never came clean about any of this stuff. He
Nope.
still to this day denies doing it. And the closest we get to him admitting his crimes is a Facebook post that he did many years later, or not Facebook, MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace.
He posted he had a MySpace profile in which he said that I'm currently in prison for murder. That
Yeah.
was pretty much the closest you get to him admitting.
Right. It's funny because
guilt on
Randy
these.
Kraft did the same thing.
Yeah.
The Randys, man. They're going down with the secrets.
Yep.
They're not letting anybody know.
And so Randall loved to. You got this is kind of like a heavyweight bout between a womanizer of Randy Woodfield, a guy who's just like to, and then you got Diane Downs, who's on the other spectrum, like to play with men.
Yeah,
he liked to play with women. They're both murderers, disgusting people.
Yeah.
And so he reaches out to her while she's on trial and starts to he toys with her and says that eventually he starts saying that he's in love with her. And like he can, and he knows she's innocent, and we're gonna get you free, Di. And it's all this weird like high school talk. Like he writes like a high school kid, and you can read, you can find these writings back and forth between them. Long story short, they write to each other for a while, and he finds a loophole where they can get married if they're both in prison or whatnot.
Right.
And finally gets her to say that publicly to everyone that they're getting married, and then he comes out in public statement and says, I don't know what she's talking about.
Got her.
Totally played her.
He's like, I need one more triumph over a female, please. Can I just get one more?
He wanted everyone to think that this woman is so in love with him because he's just this beautiful man.
So he wanted to turn it and make it seem like she reached out to him?
Yes.
Oh, man, what a bastard.
He played her hard.
He's such a bastard.
Also, another tie-in to Ann Rule. He tried to sue Ann Rule for $12 million while in prison.
Yeah.
And
well, her book said he had small hands, man. What's a guy to do?
Small hands. She alluded to other things were small too in the book.
Yeah, and he had herpes. She's the one that kind of busted that bubble out there.
Right.
So yeah, he didn't take to that too kindly.
The federal court in Oregon dismissed the lawsuit in January of 1988, citing that the statute of limitations on such a lawsuit had been exhausted.
I can't believe it could have even been a possibility.
Yeah. In 2001 and 2006, DNA testing linked Woodfield to 2 additional murders in Oregon that occurred from 1980 to 1981.
Right. But again, they didn't follow up on these. They didn't charge him with these because where's he going? He's not going anywhere. So.
Still playing women while locked up. During his time in penitentiary, he's been married 3 times, divorced twice, writing letters to countless women, and in every letter he acts as though they're his only one.
Yeah,
you know, that old gag, you're my only one, and then just like stacks of fucking letters that all say the same shit to different girls.
He's just calling them up.
We talked about his MySpace. Here's the details. On his MySpace account in 2006, he says, for his description, he says, I'm Randy. I'm 55. I spent we could do the Pina Colada Randy Kraft thing again on this one.
All right, I'll play some music.
All right.
Ready?
Here we go. I'm Randy. I'm 55. I spend the remainder of my days in prison because I have committed murder along with many other crimes. I once tried out for the Green Bay Packers. The only reason I didn't make it is because the skills I had to offer, they didn't need at the time.
Bullshit.
Liar.
Liar.
Oh man, that's funny. So the Randys have a lot of similarities.
Yeah,
actually.
And then in May of 2012, we talked about he was linked by DNA to 3 more cold cases, namely Darcy Fix and Doug Altick, the ones that he, Darcy Fix being the girl that he had known.
Yep.
And then in 1980, Julie Wright's the murder that he committed in 1981, the girl that he had also had a little fling with and that he murdered. So, yeah, man.
So that's him, man. It's Randy Woodfield.
Randy Woodfield, the Green Bay Packer.
Green Bay Packer killer.
All right, shout-outs.
All right, let's start with, you want to start with iTunes reviews?
Yes.
We did Stitcher last free episode, right?
Yep.
All right, so let's get to a
We owe a lot of y'all. Thank you so much. iTunes, Stitcher, whatever you got, to just go click 5 stars real quick, or if you want to write a review, it's awesome. We love reading them, and it helps out the show.
Absolutely.
We are almost to 400 iTunes reviews.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great. That's incredible.
Help get us to 400.
That's right. We would appreciate it.
We would love that.
So let's see some new ones. Danny Rose 256 left us a 5-star review. Miranda Hahn, Laura Sonic 07, Carly Ann 182, Blue Persuasion. Did you leave us another review? I feel like you've left us a review.
I feel like she
before.
keeps updating it or something and getting
That's cool.
up to the top.
I like it. But this time it's pretty extreme. It's the best podcast ever with 5 stars. I don't know. I think she actually drew in an extra star. It's pretty crazy. I don't know. But thank you for whatever you're doing.
Right.
Catherine, 1231, M-Mall Lover, or what? MMA Lover, sorry.
Oh, I love MMA
Lover.
too, man.
Cool, yeah.
UFC's been on fire lately.
5-star review, thank you. And Kroll NJC. Thank you for your 5-star review. And thank you to everyone who has just clicked 5 stars. You know, you didn't feel like typing something, whatever. Don't care. That helps us a lot.
That helps.
They are fun to read, though, but thank you.
Going on our social media accounts and sharing the show, or going on your social media accounts and like screen capping an episode you listen to and sharing it. All that stuff helps big time.
Right. You can find us at True Crime Guys on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
You know, your friends might love the show too. If you
Podbean.
share it and put it out there, they might, you know, anybody you know that likes podcasting, let them know about us.
And if you're fairly new to the show and you're using iTunes or a podcast app or whatever, you're probably not getting all of our episodes.
Yep.
So check out podbean.com/truecrimeguys or go truecrimeguys.com and you can see all of our episodes there. The first one should be Randy Kraft.
Yep.
We don't number ours because I don't know why. We probably should have.
That's why. Why would we?
Well, because when people see it and then they see the first one's like number 10, then they would know we have more.
Oh.
That's why we would do it, Lauren.
Oh, okay. Well, fuck me.
Well. Hey, in hindsight's 2020.
Right. It's at True Crime Guys on Twitter, at True Crime Guys on Instagram, and then we have a Facebook page that's only a couple away from 2,000 likes. So thank you all for that.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Go give it a like. We have a closed Facebook group that you can get in if you send a request.
Yeah, you can get on there and talk with other creepers about our show or other shows or whatever.
Yeah, much love to Michelle K for running that.
Absolutely.
Big shout out to Brandy Saleh. I don't know how to say your last name, Saleh.
Okay.
We missed her on Patreon. She's been a...
How?
I don't know.
We're always so perfect with everything we mention, right? We're so on it typically.
Either way, Brandy, thank you
crazy.
so much. Patreon.com/truecrimeguys. We just did the Ted Bundy 2.5 hour spectacular.
Right. I think that was like our 7th or 8th Patreon episode on there.
At least.
Yeah, for $2 a month, you can listen to all those. We put in extra work.
$2 gets you... We haven't done any New York accents in this one.
Oh, okay.
$2 gets you... What does it get you?
Get you the episodes. Get you
the episodes. Gary Ridgway, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer. It gets you all the big hitters.
Oh yeah, it gets you the big hitters.
And it gets some Photoshop work and extra bonus recordings.
We got to put some more of those behind the scenes stuff.
There's a Q&A recording we did on there where people asked us questions.
Yeah, we'll do another one of those soon too. Maybe after the next Patreon episode, we'll do another Q&A.
It gets you giveaways. Someone just won a clock. Next month, Michael promised a hoodie, which I'm going to come out of my pocket again for a big time.
I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, that was silly.
How about a sticker?
Someone that donated $2 is going to get a $60 hoodie. That's good business.
That's good business. And you get to pick which one it is.
Right.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What else?
We have an email at it's truecrimeguys@gmail.com. So shoot us an email.
If you have any questions or whatever.
Much love to, hold on, I got an email that we just got that I can pull up.
Okay.
Oh, the YouTube
I want to mention something
guy.
else. Yeah. So we were searching our case or an old case or something recently on YouTube, and we came across our YouTube channel that we did not make.
Yeah.
Which is, it's cool. It's very cool. We're digging it, right?
Yep.
I mean, the extra publicity, we'll take it.
Hey, dude,
And whoever's
honestly,
doing it, we're cool with it.
I tried to put one of our episodes, I tried to put...
was it Burdella?
Bob Burdella?
Yeah,
no,
was it one of those? It doesn't matter.
I tried to put
Lauren
one of our...
tried to do it, and he's not very good at it, so thank you. No.
I tried to upload one of our episodes to YouTube because that's a whole other audience.
It is.
When people search a name of a serial killer, our episode could come up. It's a ton of work to put stuff on YouTube, man. It's like a long time, and my internet's slow.
Yeah.
And so someone did all the effort and put all of our episodes, or not all of them, but a lot of our episodes are on YouTube now. If you just go to YouTube and search True Crime Guys, there's a profile that came up.
You'll see our logo on there.
Yeah, you'll see our logo, and our episodes are up there, so that we actually appreciate that. As long as you're not putting our Patreon episodes up there, we're totally cool with the exposure, and so you have our permission to do that.
And thank you, whoever you are. Hey, reach out. Maybe we can work together.
You know how we found out about the YouTube page was we got an email from Danielle. She's from Vegas, actually.
Cool.
Big shout out to Danielle. She was doing, she's a student in forensics class in high school, and she has a project that's due on Monday, and she needed to look up facts on Patrick Kearney. And she couldn't find anything really worthwhile out there until she found our YouTube video.
He was a hard one to research.
Yeah, he was. And I guess that she said that our video pretty much is what she did in her entire report off of this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She just ripped us up. But that's awesome. So, yeah, definitely. She said that we should go speak to high schools, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Oh, man. I'm never going back to high school.
So, yeah, big shout out to Danielle and whoever's putting those videos up, man. Thanks. Reach out, and we'll send you some stickers or something for all the work that you're putting in.
We really appreciate that.
Yeah, so anything else?
I think that's pretty much it. And we'll try to be more consistent here. Now that the holidays are, we got Christmas coming up.
Someone tagged us in something on Instagram, and it looks pretty interesting, and we're considering doing an episode on it. So we may have an episode picked out for next week. We'll have to look into it a little bit more. But either way, we're going to try and be back next week and have an episode for you.
Yeah, we're going to try and get back on track here.
Yep.
We promise.
Yep.
No more hiatuses.
All right. We love y'all. Keep creeping. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. All that stuff.
All of them.
See ya.
Keep creeping.